Welcome to Failing for You, where I'll fail so you don't have to, or even better yet, so you can too. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Failing for You. It is me, your host, Jordan Yates, and today I'm really excited to be joined by Sean Walters, the general manager of CAPTRON North America. Now, today's episode is going to be fun because, as you guys know, recently your girl was laid off and she's been looking for a new job. And I always love getting advice from people who have unique experiences and have, had a longer career than me and learned quite a bit. So Sean has had a little bit of experience working at a startup and kind of the struggles there, as well as what it was like to make the decision to leave a job with really good culture to take more money and then come back to that company because he was like, culture seemed to have won. So Sean, without further ado, say hello to everybody.
Well, hello everyone. Jordan, thank you for having me on your show. I'm really excited about this opportunity and hoping that this will bring value to people.
But real quick, before we get started, let's hear a quick message from our sponsors.
Hi there, I'm David Turner from Process and Automation Specialists. In our world, process improvement isn't just a phrase, it's the key to unlocking efficiency in your operations. With over 20 years of hands-on experience in the heart of manufacturing plants, I've walked in your shoes, worked alongside teams like yours, and understand the ins and outs of your daily challenges. My journey from the plant floor to leading process solutions means I know exactly what it takes to elevate your operations. Interested in transforming your process efficiency with a partner who's been there? Let's connect on LinkedIn. Don't wait for the future of automation. Let's create it. Process and Automation Specialists, engineering efficiency together.
Go ahead, push our buttons. Actually, you don't have to physically push our buttons at all. Here at CAPTRON, we specialize in innovative capacitive sensor technologies, which means better ergonomics for your workplace. And unlike mechanical buttons that break or malfunction after repeated use, our sensors are rated for 100 million operations. Durability is the name of the game, and we're winning! And you can be too. Visit CAPTRON at Automate 2024 in Chicago, Illinois on May 6th through 9th at booth 2886 or visit captron.com. CAPTRON. Install once, replace never.
Absolutely. And guys, by the way, CAPTRON is sponsoring this and a couple other episodes. So shout out CAPTRON. Before we get into it, Sean, do you have any plugs that you want to give to CAPTRON?
I think the big one is we are really trying to get our name brand out there in the market. We do strive to bring value to customers and help them with their products. We will be displaying at Automate. We're at booth 2886. So if you get an opportunity and you're in Chicago, we'd love for you to stop by and check us out.
Well, you heard it there, and you're probably going to hear it again in this ad in about 2 seconds. So
Awesome.
there you go. And now we're going to get back into the actual topic. So Sean, speaking of startups, tell us what it was like working at CAPTRON in early days when it had really low brand awareness and what that was like for you.
Well, first of all, we're still in this position where we have low brand awareness and we're trying to build it. And a little bit of history beyond that is I came from a very large organization, and then I started at CAPTRON, which had a very much so startup feel in August of 2022. And it was just a completely different dynamic from what I was used to. A lot of moving parts. The owners of the CAPTRON had decided that they were going to take the organization from New York and move it down south here to Fort Mill, South Carolina. So it was a challenge from the get-go. It was hey, we're going to take operations, we're going to move it. We feel we're going to better serve our customers from this area. And so there was just a lot of different moving parts, and at the same time, still trying to grow our brand awareness in the market and gain customers, right? Hey, we have a very neat product. CAPTRON North America was always on the radar of our owner. He wanted to expand into North America as well as Asia. And fortunately, a very large customer found us, Amazon, and they ended up using us for their picking stations across every Amazon location on the globe. And so that launched CAPTRON North America.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a little bit of a whirlwind for the previous manager. But the focus always was Amazon and trying, hey, we got to figure out how to grow our business outside of this large customer because the products do bring value in other markets. So, starting back in August, it just was a whirlwind and a lot of great things we were able to accomplish, obviously including moving this business to South Carolina and getting an operation set up that was a little bit more conducive to being able to serve our customers more quickly. I mean, we have a lot of product here, but we didn't have that ability in New York to serve the customers and get it out the door. And that's really been our core focus as we're moving forward, is just being able to serve our customers with the fastest service possible.
So you guys, or Captron's originally based out of Germany, is that correct?
It is. CAPTRON has been an organization that started 1981. I hope
Mm-hmm.
I got that right. And ultimately, it got started in the sensor business, level sensing, and it moved into mobility sensing, meaning took that same capacitive technology, and all of a sudden we figured out, hey, we can use that on buses and trains. And that was really the launch in the early 90s into button technology. So we took it
Mm-hmm.
from level sensing into buttons. And and frankly, that's where Amazon saw the value, right? They said, we have issues. We don't want to move forward with our mechanical buttons because, as you can imagine, people are touching orders or confirming orders all day long. And they saw these buttons on buses and trains in Europe, and that's how they come to know who we were, and taking that technology into other spaces like the automation space. So that's really where it got its start, in the button area.
So in Germany, where like the headquarters was or is,
Mhm.
it for them, is their brand awareness pretty good over there, like in Europe? Like, do a lot of people know who Captron is? Is the brand presence strong over there?
I would say in the mobility space, very strong. We have a
Mm-hmm.
very high market share. Buttons do very well. Outside of that, I think the growth into the automation space, into building automation as well, hasn't been a focus until the last couple of years. And that's
Mm-hmm.
really where we're striving to grow more brand awareness, because it was, hey, we're a button on a bus, on a door. And that's how Europe does their whole transport. We don't do that
Yeah.
function here. They open the doors only when people let them know to open the doors. So that's a different technology we use here. So in that industry, yes. Outside of that industry, not so much, but it's been a core focus of ours for the last 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, so the reason I ask is I'm curious, when you guys started over here in North America, what was it like working with leadership over there where maybe they already had good brand awareness and they're like, "Hey, why does nobody know who you guys are yet? Like get it together," or were they pretty understanding in the time that it took when you move a product to a new country or continent? Like what was that like being a part of the team, moving from somewhere where there is good brand awareness to like, "Hey, we are so fresh."
That's where I get a smile on my face, because that's it. I had a lot of warnings going to work from, an American publicly traded company to a privately held German company. Like, there's
Mhm.
cultural differences. They go to business differently. That was not the vibe I got from Captron at all. It was like, hey, we're bringing you on because we think you know this market better. We want you to grow it. We want you to take what you know from your American market and grow it there. So I mean, I'm kind of getting goosebumps already. That was the autonomy that I had from my leader at Captron. There was no like, hey, this is how we're going to do it. You're going to do it our way, or it's the highway. It's no, we want to work together. We want to figure out and that's what's going on right now. Even as you and I are talking,
Mhm.
we're learning from each other inside our organization, is how do we best grow brand awareness in our market? How do we best serve our customers? And that's really what's at the core of our leadership at Captron. And kind of to your original question, that's what I'm passionate about. I mean,
Yeah.
there's no like, this is the way it's going to be. It is really a team. I wasn't used to that. I was used to having to politic for what I wanted. It's a completely different feel than I'd ever had before in my life.
That's like so nice to hear because I've had a couple of my customers where they're experiencing something similar where they were, their parent company is over in Europe and they're starting up over in the US and realizing there is a bit of a like culture shift of how you have to market to the US versus somewhere in Europe. And a couple of the guys that are on like one of my customers' telecontrols, they're such nice, cool guys. And some of them are like from Europe and they're coming here and they're like, I don't know how to talk to these people. So they have a couple Americans on the team, like teaching them some stuff. And it's really interesting watching them learn the market. And we're going to have another episode on that where Daniel comes on and tells us like about moving from that area over to the US and like the shifts there. But it's nice that you got to work somewhere where they did give you so much autonomy to make these decisions rather than second guessing you constantly. Because last week I was on a call with somebody and they said that their parent company was in the Netherlands and they had to explain like every part of American culture to them, like, hey, we need health insurance here, like we need benefits, like we don't have like, you know, government healthcare here like you guys do over there. And so
Yeah.
it's interesting, some companies get it that it's different on the other side of the world and some don't. So I'm really happy that Captron is a company who understands the cultural differences and how to empower their employees. So that kind of moves us over to Sean. You loved Captron, but then you quit. Why did you do that?
I did. And interestingly enough, somebody I had known from a previous work environment had came to me and said, "Hey, Sean, yeah, I'd really like you to look at this opportunity of running our sales and marketing department." And it was almost a year ago at this time. I'm like, "No, I'm not interested, you know, at all." And he had continued to pursue me and said, "Hey, you really just, I'm not asking you to dive in this one." And I mean, I kept pushing him off. And
Mm-hmm.
it was somebody I knew. I had liked this person working with him. I didn't work a ton with him directly, but I mean, he was a good person to work with. And so I said, finally, he said, "Well, just go talk to these investors."
Yeah.
And so he's like, I met with the investors and they sound pretty cool. And it's like, all right, we want to invest in you, and we want you to get into this private equity deal where we're basically buying a company. And they put all this altruism around it with, we're going to give it this best home and we treat the employees right. And it sounded really good from my perspective. It was my
Yeah.
language. And frankly, he knew me, and I think he liked how I led a sales team. And so he was looking for some of that. It wasn't anything negative on his part. And ultimately, here's what really was the interesting part. And this is the culture we have at
Mm-hmm.
Captron. Is I went to my boss. His name is Philip. He owns the company. And it was one of the most emotional calls I've ever made, in my professional career. I mean, I really enjoy working for him. I mean, we're a team. We have a leadership team. It's him and Al, and we all get along very well. And, getting to know each other over the last, I don't know what it was at the time, a year and a half, it was emotional. I didn't want to leave. And here's the crazy part about it. He supported me in that. He
Wow.
did. He's like, "Sean," because I told him, I'm like, "Hey, they're giving me equity. There's a big chunk of money here. I'm getting paid well. It's going to be game changing for my family." And he's like, "Sean," he goes, I hate that this is happening," because it's, he was heavily reliant on me. I mean, I was it
Yeah.
for a lot of the business in North America as far as managing the business. And he was supportive, and it made it worse for me. And I'm like, oh. And we had a contract, which is typical in German environments where you have a long parting. So I worked for him for 2 months. I said, "Hey, I'll do my best to help you find my replacement." And I did interviews with him. And you can imagine I'm doing interviews with people on my job,
Yeah.
and explaining to them how much I love this culture. And I'm like, "Listen, I'm not, this is the real deal." And so the short story is I got into this private equity and I started to realize it was a bit of a smoke show. It wasn't
They
what you thought
sold
it
you
was.
well.
Yeah, and I wasn't going to have the ability to have the impact, right, that I wanted. I mean, I thought I was hired to help create the culture, help, do all the things that they talked about, like, bring this company into the fold, show them that we care about them. And it wasn't that case at all. I mean, I was being micromanaged and I was being expected to micromanage, and I said, "Time out. This
Ew.
is,
Yeah.
it was a seven-figure deal." So I'm like, this is not how I work. And it became very tensious for me. And I think, I mean, to your point, Jordan, when you're in the situation where you're looking around and someone comes and offers you seven figures or a high level income, you want to come at it and really understand what you're getting into. And money, and I learned very quickly, my peace wasn't worth that money. I
Yeah.
mean, I might have been able to make it to the finish line or not. I don't know. But when you're spending 9 hours, 10 hours of your life a day and you don't like what you do, it ain't worth it. Right.
Absolutely.
And so, and I had a good living. It wasn't, I mean, Captron, I'm able to do what I want to do and I have a great lifestyle. So it was like I had a lot of wrestling internally, and it didn't take me but a week at this new job. And I called up Philip and I said, Philip, I'm like, this is not what I thought it was. And of course, he's really like, I didn't expect this call. And I said, well, I didn't either, but I said, I, I, I like what I had. I don't like what I have now. And I said, I could stay here, but I like this opportunity if you haven't found somebody, which, he and I had still been in communication with some of the folks that he was interviewing with. And he flew into the U.S. and I picked him up at the airport, and great discussion, sitting in my backyard, and we just decided we were going to move forward, and I was grateful. And I mean, I've been back now for, I mean, that happened in a very short time frame in early October,
Mm-hmm.
and I just I feel grateful to be part of an organization. And it's like, it's kind of weird. Like, should we be weird about this? And it's not weird. It's no, we're
Yeah.
here, we're moving forward, and we've been able to bring on some additional, team members here in North America. And you've had a chance to meet Eileen, and she's doing some wonderful things in our marketing department. And we have Aaron, who's running the books, and it's just high energy here now,
Yeah.
and his culture is definitely, I mean,
Oh, your audio bounced for a second.
it did. Am I back?
Yeah, you're back.
So, I mean, everything starts with the leadership, and really and I know there's a lot of different influences out there, like when Simon Sinek talks about leadership, it's true. I mean, I've been in the industry now for 20 plus years. And if there's a leader and they're about themselves and they're about grinding people and not really caring, you will feel it at every level in the organization.
So, Sean, clearly, like the culture at Captron sounds like it's very inviting and welcoming, and it's pretty cool that they were like fine with you just coming back after leaving. But I know a lot of people have like a lot of pride and would be kind of nervous to even approach the situation and say, "Hey, like I know I left, but like I want to come back." Like, how hard was it for you to work up the courage and kind of like kill your ego and be able to go and make that conversation happen?
Jordan, that is a great question. And for me, the biggest part of that is what kept echoing through my mind is fail fast.
Mm-hmm.
You had the failing, that's the theme of your podcast, failing
Yeah.
for you. And if you make a bad decision, that's okay. Life's short. You can fix it, and maybe Philip would have found somebody and I wouldn't have been able to come back. But to me, that's where you cash the ego. You say, listen, this wasn't the right decision for me. I enjoyed working for Captron. I enjoyed building something, and it wasn't a thing. It was just fail fast, make the decision. And frankly, I think that's good business, right?
Yeah.
You make a decision. It wasn't the right decision. You fix it, you move on. So for me, there was a little bit of hesitation there, but ultimately the direction was to go with somebody you enjoy working with.
Yeah, no, there's the big like sunken cost fallacy of like, I put my time into this, I put my new effort into this, like should I just stick it out and see how it's gonna be? And recently my mom had started a job and she was training like 12, 13 hours a day. And she's like, I hate this so much. It's not what they told me it was gonna be. And I was like, quit. Like it's okay to quit. Like just because you said you were gonna do it and you told all your family about it and like you're so excited and it was like a whole thing, like just quit. Who cares? Like it's fine if you really realize quickly it's not going to be good. Just sticking it out for like the sake of pride is never a good idea, because like then it's just going to be wasting more time doing something you're miserable with. But I'm curious, as somebody who's been interviewing for jobs, and to a lot of young people that are listening who don't realize that when you're interviewing, sometimes the interviewer is trying to sell you on the position and they can be really good salespeople. And that's why I'm always hesitant when a salesperson is interviewing me, because I know that they're going to make it sound really good because they're just used to selling. Whether or not they mean to, they're just used to selling. So can you kind of tell us like questions you wish you would have asked or things that you wish you would have kind of honed in on to better understand what you were getting into?
Yeah, I think your question goes to two different points here. And it was something I wish I would have said at the very tail end of what I was saying is one is you got to trust your gut a little bit. And it's a weird thing when someone says trust your gut. And I was like, but there were some red flags that stepped up along the way that I kind of like, I pushed down. And part of me just is, wow, this big chunk of money sitting here, right? And you kind of get the little like lotto ticket mentality,
Mm-hmm.
and it made me miss some of those red flags. So, if you're out there, talking to your audience, if you're out there, you're interviewing. To me, it's a two-way street. You really got to see it both ways. They're interviewing you, and you're interviewing them. And if there's something in your gut that tells you I'm just not comfortable with it, you keep digging at it. And you keep digging at it until you're either confirmed that no, that was a thought, we're okay, or no, that's a problem. And even if you're in a situation where you need a job, I say don't. Just keep finding that place where you feel comfortable, where it really suits your personality and where you're going to thrive. Because jumping on board with something, and I do see this across the market. A lot of folks who are just getting into in the industry, it's tough to get into,
Yeah.
right? And you may want to just jump at the first opportunity that comes along, and there's a lot of bad opportunities out there. You really have to work to find the right organization and just really do your vetting well. If you feel like it's going well, don't rush to that finish line to get to an offer. Say, hey, can we set up another meeting? I'd really like to talk. And here's something that I do personally, and I would recommend to the audience if somebody who's interviewing them doesn't offer this, but this is something on offer. I
Mm-hmm.
said, here's some numbers to my team. Call them, ask them whatever you want, right?
Yeah.
Because, I'm giving you the sunshine and roses here. Here's a question. You can talk to them completely independent of me, and they can tell you, no, that's how Sean is, or he's full of it. And if you get that opportunity with an organization, or they don't give you that try to take that. Say, hey, can I talk to somebody on your team?
Yeah.
Is there a chance that you have somebody that you recommend that would help me understand how you go to market a little differently? Ask those questions that allow you to get a different perspective other than that person you're talking to in the interview.
No, that's such a good point because I actually had a phone call with someone recently and they're like, before we even interview you, like get to know some people on our team, see if the culture is even a fit before we officially interview you because like you want to know if you would like it here before you try to go put on a show and like, be like sell yourself. And so I thought that was a green flag. I was like, yeah, like I'd love to talk to people and, get the tea, see what's like really going on here and see like what people actually think of this job and this culture. So I definitely agree that's a great move from the hiring perspective. Have you, when you were interviewing people, like I know I keep harping on ask the questions, interview them back, but have you ever been asked a question as an interviewer where you're like, okay, that was like a weird question, like maybe that was a little inappropriate or like something that kind of turns you off of somebody because they asked like kind of weird questions? Like is there any like boundaries in what you've heard as somebody who is interviewing people?
I don't know that there's necessarily a bad question, but your questions can certainly, to me, can kind of give me your intentions. If, you know, going into any interview, and this is what I tell your audience, if you're going into an interview and you want a job that's 100% work from home, do your
Hmm.
homework and make sure that if it's a company that wants you to work at the facility, don't start asking questions like, well, is it okay if I leave at 1 o'clock in the afternoon?
Yeah.
Like those kind of questions aren't going to work in a lot of applications. You got to, you're going to set yourself like, okay, you may not have meant it to sound that way, but it may come across that way. So I don't think any questions are off limits, but I mean, if you want to set yourself apart, especially in today's environment, there's some dynamics changing around from working from home and all of
Hmm.
that stuff. But I think the biggest thing is I want to get to a point where I feel comfortable knowing that we're going to work well together and we're going to work towards a common vision, right? Like
Hmm.
we have a goal to achieve. If we're in this because we just want a paycheck, that's somebody I'm going to steer clear of,
Yeah.
right? And as part of the interviewing process, I see it. I mean, it's a relationship, and I'm not into, hey, I don't want to be hiring somebody every 6 months. I
Yeah.
want somebody who wants to grow with our organization and be part of it. because one, that's just a better way of doing business. And two, when you have people you enjoy working with, it just makes it a lot more fun. So I don't know that I answered your question well, but I would just say make sure your questions are relevant. Make sure that if you have an initiative, whether it be work from home or having flexibility here or flexibility there, make sure you look at what they're looking for first,
Yeah.
right? And then if you know that that's what they want, then don't waste either of your time.
It's really weird when you like have the experience of interviewing people and then you go take an interview and like you're the one being interviewed because you really can hear how like a question comes out and like how that would come off to an interviewer. Because like I don't think I understood that until I was probably like 19 or 20 and I was working at an oil and gas service company and I was interviewing welders and like manual laborers and stuff like that. And a lot of their questions was like first thing like how much does it pay? And they're like, that's $1 more than my other place. Okay, like when can I start? And I'm like, honey, like you haven't gotten it yet. Like calm
Right.
down. Like if you're gonna leave for $1 more an hour, that's a bit of a red flag for me. Cause if somebody down the street offers you $1 more an hour, like then how do I know that you're gonna stick around? So I can definitely see the importance of somebody asking about the culture and the work environment rather than just the money, because then you know that they're easy to pull away from if there's just like a tiny bit more here or there. But when it comes to, I guess we'll shift over to like fostering a good work environment and being a leader of people once they're on your team, Sean, Eileen says that you are an awesome leader and have some really good experience. So can you tell us about your leadership style when it comes to running a team?
Well, I think there's a couple different components. I think one of the most important pieces is transparency. It's tough at times. Like internally, I don't even know who I am sometimes. Like I got to figure out where I'm at. But that's part of it, right? And that we can be, we don't have to be perfect here. I think a big part of vision or a big part of leadership is vision, and the good news is I have somebody that has vision,
Mm-hmm.
who believes in people. I believe you have to like people. I mean, you have to have a genuine care for people. And I see a lot of leaders and organizations that don't. And you just don't start off on the right foot when you don't care about people.
Yeah.
If you're all about yourself, then how can you be a good leader? So, and for me personally, my faith plays a big part of it. It's treating people well. It's treating people with respect. I think there's just a big component of leadership that is just around the people skills, and that's
Mm-hmm.
something that I'm always working on and something I'm striving for. I don't think I'm a great leader. I'm very appreciative of the fact that Eileen thinks that I'm somebody who strives to be a great leader. And I think you constantly have to work at it. You constantly have to think, all right, how do I put my own selfish ambitions aside
Mm-hmm.
and focus on enabling them to be the best they can be? And I have to fight that. Because sometimes I want to do what I want to do, right?
Yeah.
But I learned early on in my sales career, and it's something I continue to fight, is if I don't take care of my customer, they don't take care of me.
Mm-hmm.
So I have to put them first. And to be honest about the fact that I struggle putting them first, right? I got a number to make. I want to sell. I
Yeah.
want to do well. I want to prove myself. All of those ego things, you have to figure out how to put in the right place. So I have to take care of my team, and the team has to take care of the customer, and then the customer takes care of the team, and then the team takes care of me. And
Yeah.
it's really that simple, and it's selfless and selfish at the same time. But when you really put your team first and you say, hey, since someone's down, we're going to figure out how to pick them up, everyone responds. But if you have a team culture where like it's all about me and I'm going to make my number, and if Philip was like it's all about me and I want to grow my business, I wouldn't be working here. It's about it. We want to grow. It's fun when you're able to engage customers and figure out a solution for them that works well for them. That's fun.
Mm-hmm.
you know, and if you can get to that mindset, I think that's where great leadership comes from, and that's where great organizations come from.
Would you consider yourself somebody who I feel like I know the answer to this based off of something you said earlier, but you hated when you were micromanaged at the company you went to for like a week. How do you balance like making sure everyone's like doing the right thing without micromanaging, but also making sure they have enough help? Like how have you worked through that of like trying to empower your team, but also keeping them on track?
I think that's a balance Two, I try to do an 80-20 rule.
Mm-hmm.
Like if something's detrimental to the organization, I'll step in. But frankly, Philip does this with me too, and I love it. He's like, "Well, what do you think?" And so I'll give him my business case. We'll do
Yeah.
that. And I do the same thing. You're like, "Well, what do you think?" Okay, do that. 80%. That's good.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go. So really giving people that autonomy, because I love autonomy.
Yeah.
I love autonomy. I love the fact, hey, we're doing this. We're engaging. It's something completely different for me. It would be completely different for the German, culture. But we're doing this, and I get to have that autonomy. And my boss is encouraging me to do this. And so if I like autonomy, why wouldn't my team like autonomy? And there's challenges in big organizations, small organizations, all the same. Like we don't have an endless, amount of money. Like, larger organizations have huge marketing, and we're trying to figure out how to strategically grow our business and all of
Mm-hmm.
that. But just giving people the ability to do their jobs, right? Like here's the expectation. This is what we're trying to get done. And you asked another question, and you asked a different question about leadership. I think that's also a huge component of leadership is if we're not on the same page, and I've screwed this up more times than I've gotten it right, but if we're not on the same page, having a conversation in a candid, kind way to say, hey, we're not on the same page here. What can we do to get on the same page?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm very open with my team. Like I screwed this up, but please give me the grace if I screw this up, and we have to have a candid conversation that we can move forward, right? But I have your best intentions in mind. But hey, we're not on the same page, because I do think great leaders have to have those tough conversations sometimes, and demand that of their team, which is
Yeah.
the toughest thing. When my team says to me, "Hey, Sean, I don't time out. I don't think you're right here." To me, that's the biggest compliment. That if a team member can come to me and say, "I don't agree with you," then I've created the environment for growth.
Sean, what if people really liked you? Now they're like, we want to work at CAPTRON. Are you guys hiring?
We are growing at a pace that we can manage. Interestingly enough, I had a conversation not too long ago, and Philip was like, "Well, you better get ready." I'm like, "Philip, I'm not ready yet." He's
Yeah.
like, "We're investing. We're growing. So we are moving forward here. We are moving into an additional market here that we're both we're all here very excited about. But um, so obviously our big claim to fame is Amazon.
Mm-hmm.
They have. I mean, we love that on our resume. It's great. They bought over 500,000 buttons. Nothing arrives at your door without them touching a Captron button, which
Wow.
I think speaks to our durability, because that's very important to Amazon. But we're moving into a space now where, hey, we have the hardware, but we're offering a solution now on the software side of it. So we can help small and medium-sized companies with their warehouse logistics.
Mm-hmm.
So helping them be more efficient, helping them reduce errors, stuff like that. So we are going to be hiring in that arena in the very, very near future. We just had a couple of customers that we've launched in Europe, like Festool, companies like that. So come June, I'm nervous and excited. We're going to be launching that here in the
Yeah.
U.S.
All right, guys. Well, keep a lookout for that if you are trying to join Sean's team this summer. So I'm sure people will be like, yeah, sounds like a pretty good place to work. So keep that in the back of your minds. But Sean, we're just about at our time today. So is there anything else that you want to leave the listeners with before we sign off?
No, other than thank you, Jordan, so much for this opportunity. A little out of my comfort zone, but just I've really enjoyed it. And to me, it's about helping people. And if any of your listeners, I mean, aside from working specifically here at Captron, but if anyone listens and they just like some insight from somebody who's been in the industry for a long time, I'm glad to help in any way I can. So I'm here to help.
Awesome. Well, I'll put his LinkedIn in the description of the show notes so you guys can connect with Sean and talk with him more if you want. But guys, that is all I have for today. So thank you for listening to another episode of Failing for You. I hope you guys learned a lot and had a good time. So yeah. Anyways, I'm your host, Jordan Yates. And in the meantime, I'll be failing for you. See you next time.
Thanks, Jordan.